you ever have those days where your hair is like 99% of the way to acceptable to wear out, but it just can't push itself that extra like 1% so that you don't have to do something with it? I'm having one of those days. Hey guys, and on this wonderful day of Vita, I am going to be doing my March bookish video. So if you've watched the last couple of these kind of videos, you know that I don't really read enough to qualify for multiple videos per month about books, but I will make the one. Since the month of March was kind of the end of the first quarter of the year, I'm going to be looking back at some of my goals, see if I've actually accomplished any of them, and by goals I mean my reading challenge list. We're gonna look and see if I've been doing that at all. So without further ado, let's get into the books that I have read. In March, I read actually 4 books. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 4. I read 4 books, which for me is quite a lot. And a few of these were pretty large books. The first book I read in the month of March was Soulless by Gail Carriger. So I got this book recommendation from another booktuber called Books and Pieces, and I love her videos, and she always talks about such awesome books. It was good. I really enjoyed it. I think I stayed up until 2 a.m. finishing that, and Drew was not happy with me. The next book I read was Outlander. Now, I don't know what really inspired me to pick up Outlander, because I've been saying for basically years that I was never going to read it and I was never going to want to read it, but I decided to try it and it was okay. I enjoyed it, I think. I spent 2 days basically doing nothing but reading it. The author has a tendency to kind of drone on about certain things, and if you know anything about Outlander, you know that it's like a huge book, right? I felt like a lot of it was just her kind of droning on about certain things. I found myself kind of skimming a page and going, yeah, alright. Yeah, okay. We're still talking about his family life, okay. And I don't feel like I got very much out of it. Like, I feel like it could have been alluded to, and somebody could have gotten it just as much as her, like, explicitly stating it. The story was really good, I want to say. I liked it more than I was anticipating. I'm actually kind of hoping that I will have time to pick up the next book. It's not like my first priority in reading. It's not going to be one that I'm immediately going out and getting. I see why people really like it. I'm just not its prime audience, I don't think. The next book I picked up was The Vegetarian by Han Kang. I'm not entirely sure still how to pronounce her name. It was a book that I hauled last month. It has been longlisted, hey, for the Man Booker International Prize. I was like way too excited about that because I was trying to find out when the list for the long list for the Man Booker was going to come out, and I saw that they had this one already out, and I was like, oh, I've read that book! So I was so excited that I had actually read it. I really liked it. It is really dark, really kind of freaky, but you are completely disconnected from the story, so I didn't find that it affected me on like a deep emotional level like most books that are very depressing and dark will do. But it's written very intentionally so that you're not connected, especially to the main character. You're not supposed to be connected to her. You're supposed to be kind of an outsider looking in on this really weird scenario that's going on in this family. This follows a woman in South Korea who decides to go vegetarian because of these dreams that she's getting. So it's not for any sort of like logical reason, it's because she's getting nightmares about meat. And spoiler alert for everybody who might want to read this book, it's only 180 pages, I suggest that you do, but I'm going to talk a spoilery bit here. The one thing that I think I found the most interesting was at like the very end. The main character has basically gone completely insane, and she's talking about all of these visions that she's having, and I may be interpreting this completely wrong. What I found was really interesting was then they started talking about her sister, who it was said had this kind of gnawing, empty feeling in her that was slowly taking over her psyche, and it was very similar to the way that they first described the main character and her slow kind of descent into craziness. You kind of get the idea that her sister is also starting to go through this kind of mental break, and then you also at the very end, the sister has a son, and the son has a dream, and dreams are factoring heavily into kind of what makes these people go crazy. Her son, who is very young, has a dream, and he's like really distraught about it. And it was just a really interesting turn that the book took, because the main character has been the focus the entire time, and how she's crazy and how she's having all these horrible visions and dreams and stuff. And then at the very, very end, like in the last 10 pages, you're like, oh my god, her sister is also slowly going crazy. And then it shows that her son is probably also going crazy. And maybe I'm interpreting that wrong, but it was really interesting for me. The fourth book that I read was Chew, and this is a graphic novel, and I had been waiting for this graphic novel from the library for a very long time. I was really grumpy when I hated it. I couldn't stand it. It is like so right up my alley. So you taste something and you can tell the thing's entire history. So what that kind of means is that he can taste people and know their entire history. So he's helping the police with cases. That was like the synopsis that I was given. He was helping police on cases, on murder cases, because he's able to like write to the victim and see who they murdered or whatever, you know, who murdered them. That to me was like such an exciting premise, and I thought it was going to be so cool. It's just totally up my alley, super creepy and dark, and Jessica likes that sort of weird shit. For one thing, the art style, which is not a bash against the book, but the art style is not my favorite. It's not my cup of tea, really. I didn't really like the art style, which was immediately kind of a put off. Another thing I didn't appreciate was that the words, there were so many words in a bubble. Like, there were like paragraphs of like text in these bubbles, and I mean the bubbles were small, and so the text was tiny, and it was incredibly hard to read and hard to follow, because everything I felt like wasn't laid out in a way that I was used to seeing. And I mean, I've read a lot of graphic novels before, but this was just this was just not a thing for me. And then there's this whole part where these people are speaking in Russian, I think, and you basically, like, there's nothing in the graphic novel that says, go to page such and such to see what these people are saying. So there's this entire, like, 3 pages of people basically talking in Russian that you don't know what's going on. And you're like, what? And, like, if that was the point, that's one thing. But they give you the translation in the back, like, after you've finished the graphic novel, and to me that makes 0 sense. Why don't you just have the translation next to the words? If you want me to translate it, put it next to it. And then, so like what, you're supposed to get to the end and you're supposed to look and be like flipping back and forth? I'm not gonna do that. That seems really, really ridiculous to me. So I did not like this graphic novel at all. I think there's like 10 volumes out already. So I'm not going to be continuing with that, because I just didn't like it. Just didn't like it. It wasn't my thing. So those are all the books that I read in the month of March. So let's talk about my 2016 reading challenge and how that is going. Here it is. I have it put in this page. Now, I don't know how you all feel about reading challenges. I have never done one. I have 9 challenges completed for the year so far, so we're just going to go through them and see which ones I've completed. A book that was translated into English, which was The Vegetarian, was originally written in Korean. A book that was set in Europe. I picked Lockwood & Co. was based in London. A New York Times bestseller, Lost Lake by Sarah Addison Allen, was a New York Times bestseller. A book recommended by someone you just met. Now this one I kind of fudged a little bit. I used Soulless because I have not met the person that recommended it to me. A self-improvement book, which was the first book that I read this year, which was The Gifts of Imperfection. A book you can finish in a day, and I read Sugar Queen in one day, also by Sarah Addison Allen. Really like. A book that's more than 600 pages, Outlander, got that one done early. A graphic novel, which was Chew. A book with a blue cover. I chose The Great Trouble, which was a book that I read last month. So those are all the reading challenges that I have completed in this first quarter of the year. I didn't acquire any books this month. My reading plans for April are kind of as follows. I want to finish House on Trad Street, which I've started and I'm actually really liking. It's cute. I'm almost finished with Great American Poetry 2015. I also would really like to finish Jane Eyre in the first 2 weeks because there's a read-along posted by Jen Campbell. Those are the books that I'm hoping to read. I'm going to just leave it at those 3. I will probably pick something else up. I know that I'm going to pick something else up. I would really like to get to Arcadia by Ian Pierce. That looks really, really good. I'm like kind of scooping out the shelf at the library because I know where it is. It's in process. It's coming. But it's not there yet, and I want to be the one that like grabs it right away. I could just tell them that I want it and they would probably set it aside for me. Let me know what you are reading if you have not already told me. And I will see you guys tomorrow with another video. Bye.